Alright guys, welcome to another video on HAIKYU Fly High, and today I'm gonna do an SSR priority tier list. Now the reason why I'm doing this now is because all of the SSR characters in this game have now actually been introduced on the global server. So the very next SSR selection banner we're gonna get is gonna be, I assume the way it should be done is that it will be a free selection from a whole pool of characters. Now the pool may not actually be all of the characters available because I vaguely remember, I mean this is a long time ago, but I vaguely remember back in Taiwan they started off with only a selection of the characters. For example, like the Inarizaki characters, they weren't actually available to choose from on the wish list straight away because they have only been recently introduced. So I don't really know how Global is going to do it, whether they will just open up to all of the available SSR characters, or you will only be a selection of them, okay? But nonetheless, I feel like it's a good time to just talk about the strengths of all of the SSR characters, so that depending on who is actually available for you to choose with, you can actually refer to this tier list and decide who do you want to prioritize first. And this is both in terms of like actually selecting them from the banner, and also in terms of like if you actually dupe them up with your milk vouchers, etc. Okay. Now the way I've done this tier list is obviously they are in descending strength. However, the last row is a bit of a special one because that's all of the starter character that we meant to get from day one of global. Now I do not really recommend picking this in your selection for your wish list, even though some of the characters are really good. For example, Iwazuyumi and Tanaka, they are probably two of the best SSR win spiker in the game. However, I just don't recommend you actually choosing them on your wish list purely because they're day one character. You are actually able to have a high chance of getting them through other means. For example, if you actually have a enough token from your SSR summon recruit shop, you can actually exchange for SSR selection box to get them. Also, for example, if you summon for UR banners, if you actually got all of the SSR characters on the UR banner, are actually just for the ones on the starting lineup as well. Okay, so that's kind of why they are actually, it's a lot easier for you to obtain those kind of characters in comparison to some of the newer ones that was only introduced from select recruit. So that's kind of why no matter how good they may be, I do not recommend putting them on the wish list, and that's kind of why they are in the bottom row. Okay, so they're in the bottom row because you do not want to prioritize something for them. It's not to say that they are bad. Okay, that's just something for you to bear in mind. However, let's talk about the other four rows one by one. So the first row, I basically put down 5 characters which I feel like they are not quite UR for obvious reason because they're only SSR characters, they have SSR stats. However, they are actually going to be comparable or maybe even outshine some UR characters in certain aspect of the game. Okay, so starting off with Yaku. Yaku, after a tough decision, I put Yaku at the top of the list purely because he's probably like the only one out of here that works at 0 dupe, like really works really well even at 0 dupe, and that's because he just have a broken game mechanics where he's able to turn any kind of normal receive into perfect receive. Okay, that's absolutely game changing mechanic. So for that alone, he is almost like a UR equivalent character in my opinion. Then next up we have Kita and Aaron. Both of them are amazing. Kita is able to basically restore stamina and also morale, and Aaron is able to basically span a super strong spike throughout. However, for both of them to work very well, you need their skill resonance. Ideally, skill resonance 4, so you need 6 dupes on both of them. So that's kind of why I put them behind Yaku on this list. Okay. Next up, we have Hinata. Hinata is almost like a UR character in the sense that he won't even be available from selection till anniversary. And also, once UR version of Kageyama comes out, there's actually a really strong broken bond, deployment bond between UR Kageyama and this SSR Hinata, which can actually make SSR Hinata hit just as hard as all of the UR spikers, okay, if not harder, okay, because it also ignores block, it's unblockable attack. So that's kind of why SSR version of Hinata is actually ridiculously strong and almost have this UR status because of the fact that you can't actually freely select him. Obviously, that was a way it was done on JP and Taiwan. I don't know whether Global can actually add him in our selection wish list. Hopefully they can. But otherwise, if he's still going to be limited, that already kind of tell you, he is kind of almost considered to be like an exclusive status in comparison to all of the other SSR. So that's kind of why I also put him on the top tier. And then next we have SSR version of Akashi. There are actually loads of power setters in this game, and out of all of the SSR ones, he's by far the best. He has this gimmick where he can force your spiker to crit whenever he does a crit, and that can actually help you to dish out a lot higher damage because when you no longer need to worry about putting, for example, awareness potential on your spiker. And as a result, you can actually build your spiker differently and make them hit a lot harder. This, once again, is a very strong broken mechanic. SP version of Akashi has something similar, but not actually quite as good as what this SSR version of Akashi is able to do. So that's kind of why I also think he's deserving of this spot on the top row of being like an almost UR level character. Okay, the next row we have characters which are, I think they're decent, but normally you are only going to be playing them if you actually have a team. And obviously, if you actually build a team around them, then yes, you are kind of forced to play into them. A lot of those teams are going to be school-related ones as well. Okay, so starting off with Kema, he's the only receiving or only SSR receive setter. So if you want to play a receive specialty team, you have to play him. Same thing with Kageyama. There are other UR version of quick spike setters. However, in the SSR tier, he is the only one. Okay, so if you want to play a quick spiking team and you don't have those UR characters, you are forced to play him. So that's kind of why those two are very team specific. Then we have the Shiratorizawa members. Those three are normally alongside with Yoshijima. That's what makes up the Shiratorizawa team and the best Shiratorizawa team. So that's kind of why you will only be playing them vast majority of the time if you're actually playing a Shiratorizawa school. Otherwise, you won't be playing them at all. And then we have these two characters which are normally used if you actually want to go for Fukudani. Those two alongside with Akashi and Bokuto, that's complete your Fukudani school bond. And then we have two characters which are sometimes only one of them is going to be needed for Inarizaki, because we will also be playing Kita for the other slot. I know there's also Aaron that you can potentially use for Inarizaki, but he doesn't actually fit that well with the Mia twins. So that's kind of why vast majority of the time you go with the Mia twins, Kita, then one out of those two characters. They both have their pros and cons, so that's kind of why I value them equally good here. And also for Akagi, he is also going to be your number one choice for like a Fukudani or team morale boost in terms of the liberal position as well. Okay, so that's kind of why I put them, all of them, in the very team specific. Unless you're going to play for that specific school team or specific speciality team, otherwise those probably won't be able to justify making into a team. However, if you are actually going to be playing those school related or speciality related teams, then they are 100% going to be your first choice on those teams. Okay, so that's basically how I view them. And then we move on to the next tier, who are characters I feel they are good enough standalone. So you don't really have to play a school around them. They can just kind of be plug in and play in some sense. Starting out with Suki, everyone actually have access to him. So unless you want to go for dupes, he's a bit of a special one in the sense that he's not actually in the selection box. I don't think he's in the selection box anyway. So even though everyone has one copy of him from this beginner event, it's actually going to be difficult for you to actually dupe him up. Now, I'm not saying that he definitely needs dupes. In fact, I don't think he needs dupes. But if you do actually want some character highly invested and can be plugged in and play for vast majority of times, then Suki is actually going to be a very good decent choice. Okay, but obviously this comes at the expense of making sure you actually play a team around your school's bond, was around your specialty first, and then if you have any remaining slot, that's where you then actually slot in those characters. Okay, so that's kind of why I put Suki here. Similar kind of thing with Nishinoya, but Nishinoya also has a pretty good role. Now the same with liberals, that a lot of time liberal, to be honest, are going to be used in order to fill in a school bond. So for example, if you play Inarizaki, you're probably going to play Akagi, unless if you're not playing Akagi, then you probably play Yaku, to be honest. If you're playing Fukudani, you're probably going to go with Akagi for the morale boost. If you're going for Shotozawa, you're probably going to go with Yamagata. So vast majority of the time, I'm going to be honest, liberal is normally going to be dominated by the school bonds that you'll be playing. However, in the off chance, let's say you already done a school bond or you don't care about school bond, Nishinoya does actually provide a bit of a niche in the sense that he is actually able to reduce the cooldown of a power spike by, I think, about 6 net crossing, which is massive. Now, this doesn't seem like such a big advantage right now. However, this is actually going to be incredibly useful once SP Bokuto is out, because SP Bokuto has this really annoying mechanics where he can actually only use his ultimate attack doing Team Morale Awakening, and that a lot of time actually force your Bokuto only able to do 2 spikes in the whole match. However, if for some reason you're actually able to line up your Nishinoya's receive into your Team Morale Awakening where your Bokuto have already done his ult, then this can actually allow your Bokuto to spam ult twice, well not spam, but basically use 2 ult within a single Team Morale Awakening, and potentially that can actually mean your SP Bokuto can actually spam not spam, sorry, can actually use his ultimate spike 4 times rather than just twice in a match. And the whole game mechanic for SP Bokuto is that whenever he spike, you are almost guaranteed to win that point. So that's kind of what there's actually going to be a massive upgrade into your SP Bokuto teams if you do actually play SSR version of Nishinoya. Okay, so that's just something for you to bear in mind. I know this is a bit more down in the future, and also at that point you may actually decide to play, let's say, an SP Liberal instead, because SP Liberal is going to have much higher team rating, etc. But this is just something that is a very niche ability that no other characters are able to do. This reduction of cooldown by 6 net crossing, which is massive. Okay, so this is definitely something worth bearing in mind, and that's kind of why I am going to put Nishinoya in this tier just for that one particular specific skill. Okay, so that's kind of why he's here. And then next up we have Yuji. Yuji is honestly not a bad character, but I feel like this label of kind of labels him perfectly in the sense that he's good enough to be plugged in and played, but because he literally have no bond with any other character, a lot of time he is just going to be lower down the picking list, not because he's bad, but just literally because there's no bond and no extra benefit of playing him over, let's say, a different character. So that's kind of why I think like this describe him perfectly. A very good character, standalone character. He can be definitely used as plug and play. It's just whether or not you actually need the win spike when they're already terrific choices, such as Iwazumi and Tanaka, who everyone can get quite easy access to out of your starting lineup, etc. Okay, so that's kind of the main thing with Yuji. Then we move on to the next character, next tier, which is what I call the Powercrept, in the sense that pretty much all of the characters in this tier are being Powercrept in one way or another by one of the other characters. So as a result, there's just no use of playing them. So starting off, we have this Liberal. Vast majority of the time, I already said Liberal, you'll be going for the school bond. And even if you're not going for a school bond, you either play, let's say, Yaku for the fact that he has such a broken game mechanics, or let's say in the future, when there's SP Bokuto, you might actually end up playing Nishinoya just for that ability or utility to reduce 6 net crossing on one of your spikes. Okay, those are actually justifiable reason to play those liberals outside of a school bond. But for Komi, I just literally can't think of any reason why you want to play him. Okay, the only reason I can think of is that if you really want to do a Fukurodani team, but even in those cases, those two are really going to be your first choice members for Fukurodani because they actually offer so much more synergy with Bokuto, and that's kind of what Komi to me is always going to be a very very weird situation where I just can't find a justifiable reason to play him. The only time I can find a reason to play him is that because, for example, let's say you actually want to free up your mid blocker space or your opposite hitter space for a UR or SP character, then as a result, in order to still get that school bond, you are forced to play Komi just for that school bond. But Fukurodani school bond is not even that good. I honestly think just simply by having Akagi on the field, the team morale from Akagi is actually already going to outweigh the team morale bond from Fukurodani. So that's kind of why I just feel like there's literally no reason playing him, and that's kind of why he's going to go into this tier of being Powercrept, essentially. Well, Powercrept may not be the right word. It's just that I can't find the reason of justifying playing him over other characters. And then we move on to 3 power setters. There's no reason of playing any one of them when you already have someone so busted such as Akagi, okay? Akashi, sorry. So that's kind of why all 3 of them are going to be in this tier. Then we have Goshiki. Goshiki is a very offensive focused win spiker, but like I said, everyone already have access to Tanaka and also Iwazumi very, very easily because they are from the starting lineup of characters. So literally I can't find any reason to play Goshiki over Iwazumi and Tanaka as well. So that's kind of why he's also going into this tier. And then last one we have Ginjima. Ginjima is a bit a weird one. In terms of all-rounder, he's going to be outshadowed by Ohira, because Ohira actually offer more utility than what Ginjima is able to do. And then if you want to do an actual offensive attack in Windspark, like I said, there's Iwazumi and Tanaka. So he doesn't really compete on the offensive end. He doesn't really compete on the defensive end because you would then go for Kita instead. And like I said, he doesn't even compete in terms of the all-rounder status for Windspark as well. So he's just kind of being outclassed in all 3 different directions. And that's kind of why I also put him in this tier as well. Okay. And lastly, like I said, those are the ones that are already from the starting lineup. So even though some of them are actually really good, for example, Mad Dog is also really good for opposite hitter. Same thing with Daichi, etc. Kuro is also playable as an SSR mid blocker, and you have the entire Daytech team as well. However, because they are in the starting lineup, there are loads of opportunity for you to actually just get them randomly or from fragments, or over time in future there could also be shops which actually have those selection boxes as well. So that's kind of why overall it just doesn't make sense economically to actually choose them on your wish list for the select banner. Okay, so that's basically in my opinion the way you want to prioritize all of the SSR characters. Let me know what you guys think, and also depending on how the new SSR selection banner is going to work, who are you going to prioritize first?